I'm a big fan of birds. I've grown up around birds my entire life. My mom and grandma have had birds, so I like them, generally speaking. I think they're cool animals. I will never have a bird. People will ask, like, oh, well, are you asexual? Are you aromantic? I don't actually know. I'm pretty sure I'm not asexual. I might be some flavors of asexual, but I highly doubt it. When it comes to aromantic, I think I am flavors of aromantic, though. Obviously, as like a feminine person on the internet, as a trans person on the internet, as a person who talks about the political shit that I talk about, and the ways that I talk about it, some would say sometimes inflammatory ways. Random people approaching me on the street being like, oh, I'm aware of you from the internet. Kind of weird from the jump. I just don't think that that's a thing that I would want to do. Liberalism is cringe, but it's better than conservatism. Social democracy is essentially the best form of capitalism you're ever gonna get, and ideally we would move past it, though I am amicable to some ideas of social democracy being a good stepping stone on the way to a post-capitalist organization of the economy. A lot of these social democratic reforms that might be more possible nowadays in a pragmatic sense, I do support, like moving to a single-payer healthcare system, like decommodifying housing, which aren't necessarily only social democratic reforms, but you know what I mean. Hello, you're now here for part 2 of the 35K Q&A. No flashy intro this time because I couldn't think of one to do. We got through, I think, like half of the 150 questions or so for the 35K Q&A in the last video, so if you haven't watched that already, feel free. This video will be on some other topics because I've arranged them in that way. Starting with, Arrow is the fool on YouTube asks, you've said in the past you have ADHD, and that's the reason as well. Financial considerations, you didn't end up going to college. Currently at the age where I have to apply to colleges, and I don't really think it's for me, but everyone in my life says life will be harder if I don't go and get a degree. Do you have any advice for people who decide not to take the college route? It's a difficult question to answer, unfortunately, because we live in a society. Unfortunately, if you're in the States anyway, and I think you probably are, college in this country is essentially a privilege meant only for the wealthy. That's just factual information, unfortunately. Because we decide to strap our students in this country, our youth in this country, with immense amounts of student loan debt for the crime of pursuing a higher education in order to become a more productive member of society, like you're told your entire life to do, it's kind of pay to win. If you have the money, like a lot of wealthy families do, where their parents can pay for their college, you just go to a nice college. In fact, you might go to a super nice college because your parents are already well connected and have networking opportunities to get you into a variety of colleges that you might not even be, you know, on a regular applicant basis actually accepted into. So unfortunately, you do in this country have to make a strategic, tactical decision on if you're going to go into higher education or not. I decided not to because I've been poor my entire fucking life, and I knew that I could get a grant for the first 2 years of college at a community college and have that paid for. But a 2-year degree is essentially worth less than the tissue that you come into. You could just flush it down the drain in the current job market, and it matters just about as much. So unfortunately, you're going to need a 4-year degree, if not better. And I was worried that after I got that 2-year degree and spent that time doing that and also working at the same time, because I would have had to, that I would then have to transfer to a 4-year school to get my 4-year degree and then maybe spend more money on that because the grant might not cover it all. I might not be eligible for scholarships or whatever. So I just decided not to fuck with all that shit, with the additional part of that being that I didn't really know what I wanted to go to school for anyway. So the other unfortunate part of the fact that our higher education system in the US is pay to win is that you have to select for degrees that you can get a good job for in order to pay off the loan required to get the degree. So you're going to go into STEM fields, essentially. You're going to become a doctor, you're going to become an engineer, you're going to do all these kinds of things that are able to get you on a viable path to getting a good paying job to be able to pay off the loan, because otherwise you're going to be struggling to pay that shit off your entire life. The only reason there is something considered a, quote, frivolous degree in the United States is because of this. Because the United States does not take higher education seriously and actively penalizes its youth for trying to attain it, you can't go to school for like a social science and expect to get a good job and also be able to pay your bills. You just can't do that. You don't have the ability. So you have to go for something STEM related. For me, I didn't really care about any of that shit, so I didn't go for that reason either. When I was first applying to a community college, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I took a honors physics class in my senior year of high school. Did actually fairly well. all things considered. But they didn't have a course like that at my community college, so I had to take the next best thing, which was like chemistry or some shit, something related to that, which is not really that related, and then hopefully transfer to a 4-year college for that. Didn't end up doing that because of life shit. The next time I was thinking of maybe going for political science or something like that, which is also no money unless you're going to try to be a corrupt politician, in which my political ideology does not allow for that, so I can't do that either. So it's like, well, okay, I'm just not going to go to college. That's the option. And I decided to instead be in the food service workforce for 10 years of my life, roughly, essentially just making money to pay my bills, and that was my life for a while. I started working in my junior year of high school, and I kept working until COVID, essentially, where I, got put on furlough. At that point, I'd been living on my own for several years, paying for my own shit. I was put on furlough because of COVID. Luckily, I was able to get unemployment and all that kind of shit, so I was able to survive through that. And then eventually, I got into the fortunate position of being able to move to Seattle, Washington, and live with people that I could share living costs with so that I can chase this dream that's likely not going to go very far of being a content creator on Twitch and YouTube. And that's where I am now. Really not much of a glow up, to be honest with you. But I'm in a more privileged position now than I ever have been, so that's nice at least. So the advice that I would give you, I've already given you in the form of you have to kind of know what you want to go to college for. You have to make a strategic choice about if you can pay for those loans. If you got wealthy family that can pay for those loans, then hell yeah, go for it. Might as well take advantage of the things you can take advantage of. If you don't, then you're going to have to make a harder decision. And if you're going to go for something where you have a high likelihood of being able to pay off those bills, or maybe go into a trade school instead, become like a union electrician or a plumber, these things, a carpenter, whatever, these things, building houses, blah, blah, blah. That work is always going to need to be done by people, but it's also manual labor, which is not everybody's thing. So it sucks. So hopefully you're able to make something of it. I would say certainly don't chase a content career. You should probably be, if you're going to do that kind of shit, like don't be like me. I just got lucky that I could live here. If I had to pay my own bills like I used to while I was streaming, I'd also have to work a day job like I used to when I started streaming. And that was not fun. That was a lot of shit to worry about. And I would have to do that if I wasn't in this lucky position. So be careful. Do it as a hobby if you're going to do it at all. Anyway. Next up, we've got Satanic Cabal on YouTube who asks, what are your thoughts on physics as a subject to study? Well, what a coincidence. I just talked about it a little bit. So I think physics is cool as shit, specifically astrophysics. I've always been interested in astronomy, in space, also the ocean, but also space. I don't know exactly where all that comes from. I do know that it's more than likely that I expressed an interest in it when I was super young, because even before I could remember, I remember having a book on all manner of like astronomy related stuff, obviously, tailored to my age, because at the time I was like, in elementary school? My dad bought me a book about astronomy, because I guess he noticed that I had an interest in it or something, and I ended up reading that shit and really enjoying it. And then eventually I was watching a lot of videos on YouTube while I was in high school in like my sophomore or junior year of like astrophysicists talking about shit. And I was like, wow, this is kind of neat, actually. Maybe that'd be something I'd look into. And it's actually a funny story. So in my senior year of high school, like I said, I took an honors physics class because I wanted to maybe, make something out of that physics career into the future, maybe go to college for it, see what I could do with it. Obviously, now you know how that panned out. But like every other interest I've ever had in my life, it's gone nowhere. But that's why I've had so many interests. Anyway, so it's interesting. So I took an honors physics class because it was the only physics class available. And I also had to take the prerequisite math class while I was taking that class. So you need to know, I think it was Algebra 2 in order to take that class. But I didn't because previous to that point, I didn't give a fuck about math at all. I took an applied math class, an easier math class, just to get, a grade and move on because I did not give a shit. So then I ended up the summer before going into my senior year of high school. I knew I wanted to take the honors physics class, and I had already made arrangements for that to be the case. I had messaged my physics teacher over the summer, like, yo, what are the things I need to know to be able to, perform at an adequate level in this class? Here's like my history of education or whatever. I ended up using Khan Academy to learn a bunch of shit that I have now completely forgotten when it comes to, the stuff you need to learn before going into that class. And I took the prerequisite math class at the same time, absolutely blew the fucking back walls off of that math class, did exceptionally well, and got like a high C in honors physics. With all that involved, the major thing that kept me back in my grade were labs. I don't know why. My brain does not make sense with labs. Labs don't make sense to me. I can't do the actual applied shit. Like, I can do the actual stuff, but when it comes to recording the information and then interpreting it in the form of a report, I can't do it. I'm really bad at it. I don't know why. I'm really good at tests. I'm good at memorizing equations. I'm good at inputting things into the equations and getting the correct answers, but I can't do the actual applied stuff, which is not really the best news if you're looking to make a career out of it, because you're going to be doing more of the applied stuff depending on which, realm you're in. So luckily the interest fell off, I guess, because otherwise I might have struggled a lot more with all that. But I think it's very cool, and I still do. I still think astrophysics is super cool. I still think space is super cool. Physics generally, like non-astrophysics physics, is not as interesting, but I've always really enjoyed physics-based games. I used to play soccer. The real ones call it football. Like, I fucked around with, like, hacky sacks, foot bags, physics-based real-life sports like that, I also really like physics-based video games. So Rocket League is a big one for me. I really like 1v1 was my game mode in that game. But I got every game mode to Diamond, which is like the 3rd highest rank in competitive, which feels good. I speedrun Super Mario 64, which is a physics-based game because it's a platformer. And it has a cool physics engine that I enjoy a lot. I play Multiverses a lot nowadays, which is also a physics-based game. Now, of course, those are like fictional physics. They're not like real-world, super realistic physics, but it's still based around the concept of physics. And I guess that's kind of how I sate that interest nowadays. But generally speaking, I think it's cool as shit. And anybody that's getting into it, hell yeah. Next up, we got Screamin' Phoenix on YouTube. They asked, when did you decide to start being a volcel, or voluntarily celibate, for those who don't know, aka just being celibate, but not because incels exist, now volcel is a term that exists. What was the catalyst, and what do you think you would need to consider dating again? So I've been voluntarily celibate for 6 years, roughly, meaning that I am not actively seeking any kind of sexual engagements with anybody. And I'm also volcel in terms of dating as well, romance. I am also not seeking any romantic engagements either. And the reasons for that is that I just don't care enough. Romance and sex for me as a person, at least in my, in my modern last 6 years of my life, are not super important. They never have been in my life. But obviously when I was going through puberty and whatnot, and when I was in high school, it was a little bit more on my mind. Now that I've been a young adult for a while, it's a lot less on my mind. So I'm just not really caring too much. I've had my experiences over my years. I always say that if I was a virgin, like now to this day, I would probably not feel the same way. But because I have had some amount of experience, I'm chilling. I don't really care. Like I've seen what's up. I've got an idea of what's going on, and I just don't particularly care too much nowadays to put in the time. Because for me, it's just too much effort. It's too much effort to fucking meet people, talk to them, become friends or develop relationships, or even do the amount of work it requires to have like a one-night stand with somebody. I just don't care enough. I just do not care enough. I would rather spend my time doing other shit. And that's literally just it. The catalyst, I don't think there was one. It was just like, okay, I don't particularly have an interest, so fuck it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to focus on myself and do shit I care about with my time. I don't know if that'll change at any point. So when it comes to what you would need to consider dating again, I don't actually know. So people will ask like, oh, well, are you asexual? Are you aromantic? I don't actually know. I'm pretty sure I'm not asexual. I might be some flavors of asexual, but I highly doubt it. I think I'm like a fairly hyposexual person, if that's the term. The people that do have sexual interests, like the standard normative position on that. I think a pretty baseline on that one. When it comes to aromantic, I think I am flavors of aromantic though. I've always, and I think it could be like ADHD, autism, whatever. I've always had difficulties with intimacy, with commitment, and all this kind of shit. I've always had difficulties with romance as like a concept, so I might be some flavor of that as well. I don't actually know, but generally speaking, I just don't care enough. So like it's been 6 years and I do not expect that to change anytime soon. Next up, we've got A Piece of Cheese on a Moonlit Night on YouTube asks, could you elaborate on your use of the term volcel? I don't really see how it counters the incel narrative. Maybe it's because the whole concept of being celibate, quote, involuntarily seems iffy to me. So they're asking me this because I've talked about it, I think in previous videos, about how I use the term volcel instead of just celibate, because in some way I see it as a method of attacking the incel narrative in some way. It's like not a thing that I think about a lot. It's not like a very big part of why I use the term volcel. I also use the term volcel because it's a meme and it's funny, and I think the term sounds cool too. Volcel, voluntarily celibate. Generally speaking, celibacy is already voluntary. Ideally, anytime celibacy is being engaged with, it is voluntary, right? A lot of people do it for personal choice. A lot of people do it for religious reasons. A lot of people are celibate for whatever. So when it comes to why I use it, there's that. When you say I don't really see how it counters the incel narrative, it's not a big thing about it. The idea is that every incel is a volcel in denial, or incels don't exist, meaning that if you put in an amount of effort in a variety of metrics, anybody that self-IDs as an incel could probably find somebody out there for them. And a lot of incels hold themselves back. Their self-hate and insecurity compounds on itself, and the hug boxes slash hate boxes, echo chambers that they get into reinforce their negative self-worth and insecurity and all this kind of shit. And it's just a constant snowball of them feeling worse and worse about themselves. And you would imagine that somebody in that kind of a mind state, who is insecure, who has all these issues, who are, and unfortunately, you know, in the incel community, there's a lot of misogyny as well, also a variety of other bigotry. Those things are not going to make somebody exceptionally interesting in the dating marketplace and the sexual marketplace. So if they could free themselves from the shackles of their own self-hatred and try to make positive steps toward bettering themselves for themselves first and foremost, but also secondarily for the purposes of trying to find romance or sex, they'd probably be a lot better. So it's kind of just that, like, oh yeah, I'm voluntarily celibate. I'm not an incel, I'm not involuntarily celibate. I've been celibate for 6 years by choice, which I think is just like a more Chad-like position. And it kind of just, you know, pokes an incel in the eye. I don't know. It's not a very big strategic decision I've made. It's just the thing that I do. I don't see that there's much harm in using volcel to refer to myself. I think the term volcel also kind of applies when it comes to religious context. There's a lot of people who are celibate because of their religion, and I have to wonder, I don't know what's usually the case, but I have to wonder if the people who are celibate because their religion says that they should be, I don't know how much of a voluntary choice that is, because a lot of people are born into the religion that they're in. The majority of people that follow any religion have been born into it. The people around them also practice it, so that's what they practice, and then, okay, well, now your religion says that you can't be gay, you can't be having sex outside of wedlock, blah, 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 all this kind of shit. Well, then that's what you're going to follow. I don't know how much of that is actually voluntary. So to say that I am voluntarily celibate means that there's nothing coercing me to be celibate. I am strictly by choice celibate. Now, it's not to say that all religious people who are celibate are being coerced by their religion to do it. It's just that I'm sure that not all of them are doing it of their own volition, of their own strict adherence to their faith. There's probably an amount of coercion in there. So I do like it for that too. You say, maybe it's because the whole concept of being celibate, quote unquote, involuntarily seems iffy to me. Well, like I say, the religious example that I just give, or like abstinence-only education and the absolute horrors that renders, you know, higher rates of abortion, higher rates of STDs, higher rates of abuse, etc., etc. That would be a form of involuntary celibacy. That's like actually involuntary, right? Like if your religion literally forces you to be celibate, and if people find out that you haven't been, you could face all manner of social repercussion. That's likely going to keep you in a form of celibacy, even as a young adult, when people are expecting that you're going out and having these experiences. Like, that's like actual involuntary celibacy. When incels talk about it, they mean like, oh my god, I'm so ugly. I'm a wrist cell. My wrists are too small, and my chin is too pushed in like Andrew Tate, and that's why I can't have sex. Like, that shit is fuck. That's bullshit. That's all cope. Are you hit on often or had many opportunities to sleep with someone and just chosen not to? I'm not hit on often because I don't go out and socialize. So the only people that hit on me are weirdos on the internet that I ignore. That said, if I was to download Tinder and if I was to lower my standards immensely, I could probably, you know, be having sex on a regular basis. But I don't care enough to do that, and I'm totally fine being celibate. So now we've got Blightman on YouTube, Hillbilly Hippie on Twitter, Femboy May Cry Jumper, and Infinite Thoughts on Discord, who ask, essentially, how did you meet your roommates? How did you and Vaush meet? How did you and Vermin meet? Yada, yada, yada. So, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if there might be some people in the audience. The majority of my audience is from Vaush's, because he's just the biggest content creator that I have a common contact with in the space. I happen to live with the guy. We are personal friends. How it happened was, I had been posting my own art in the art section of the DGG Discord way back when. This was before I was streaming. It's also been before Vaush was streaming. This was before Vaush was Vaush, actually. And he was also posting his art there too. And I thought his art style was cool. I had been intending to start streaming at some point in the near future. So I messaged him and was like, yo, do you do commissions? I think it would be cool if you could draw me in your art style so I could use it for my branding on Twitch, YouTube, etc., etc. That never ended up happening to pan out, but we did, you know, continue to talk here and there. After a little bit, I become friends with Vermin, his then partner, and at a certain point, I had talked about wanting to move out of New Jersey, not necessarily to the Pacific Northwest, but to move out of New Jersey. And they had mentioned that they were looking for a roommate. So bada bing, bada boom, I visited, and then eventually I moved here. And that's really it. We both started creating content around the same time, but obviously he popped the fuck off because he's got a better skill set and does a variety of networking, and generally speaking has a better capacity for being a popular and successful content creator in a variety of ways. But we did start around the same time, which is interesting. So yeah, pretty easy story. Next up, we've got Will Barker. Little known fact, Will Barker actually edits for the Hasanabe YouTube channel. Might do some other stuff as well. Pretty cool guy. Very big fan of his editing style. Asks, what's the biggest idea you have for a piece of content, and or what was your first attempt at making content? So when it comes to my first attempt at making content, I can actually talk a fair amount about that. So if we look back at my YouTube channel, we've got all these new videos, some older videos, etc., etc. If we keep scrolling, my first major attempt, anyway, at doing content was what was called the CONURE report. So if you look at these older videos here, these were my first 4 videos ever, and they were all part of one CONURE report episode. It was about 2 hours long. All of these videos are scripted ahead of time. So at the time, I was new to content creation. I was not really much of a political commentator. I was not used to off-the-cuff commentary for anything, much less politics. So I was like, okay, I'll script the shit out, but I also wanted to be a Twitch streamer. I didn't want to just do video essays. So I had the bones of a video essay being the scripts, but I decided to do essentially live tapings of those scripts on Twitch. So it's kind of like, you know, filmed in front of a live studio audience. Except I would do multiple takes. I would then, you know, take that VOD and cut them into these videos that you see here. So essentially, I tried to blend video essay with live streamer with news and politics, kind of almost some more news-esque content. So like if you look at this video, we've got me here, the chat. I've also got you can see that I got this little thing on my finger. It allows me to change the image slideshow. So you'll have this image here, and then eventually I press the little button and it switches to another image. And I did that for the entirety of the videos. And it's kind of like when you watch like Some More News or John Oliver, they'll be talking and then up in the corner next to them is like an image that comes up that's relevant to what they're talking about. That was kind of the idea. And I did that with all these news clippings, all this kind of shit, the things that I was citing and talking about. It was a lot of sauce. It was a lot of effort. It was a surprising amount of effort that I did all on my own while working a day job, which was a bit ridiculous. Also, I look very young here. That's crazy. I think I look younger now, though. That might be just be copium. But when it comes to the actual scripts, I can show you that as well. Give me a sec. So here's the first ever script for the CONURE report, episode 1, as you can see. Trump concentration camps was just the main name for the whole thing. So we got the skeleton of the script, we got some clips, we got a bunch of other notes. So then we have the actual script itself, so we got all the formalities in the beginning. Then we got the first video, AOC proves right wing is anti-Semitic. So this was around when AOC was comparing the camps at the border to concentration camps, because that's literally definitionally correct. And she got in a lot of heat for that. So I was talking about that. So anti-Semitic is obviously a play on words, very funny. And here's that whole ass fucking script. And then eventually we get to the second segment. This is the truth behind Trump's border crisis. This video we're looking at right now. This 1 hour long video. And here's this entire script for that, which was essentially me detailing the 2009 US-backed military coup on the democratically elected leader of Honduras, my father's home country. Manuel Zelaya was the president who was couped, and it was a lot of shit. And then I talked about, you know, the things that happened after it, the fact that the guy who ended up getting in there after Porfirio Lobo, they call him Joe, Juan Orlando Hernandez, he ended up actually doing what they accused Manuel Zelaya's administration of doing, even though they weren't doing that. And it's a bunch of memes. So you can watch that video if you want. But that was a long-ass video. And anyway, that's the main concept. And then we got 2 reaction-type videos at the end. It's a lot of work. I did all this scripting. Somehow, my ADHD has gotten worse since then and would not allow me to do this nowadays. Absolutely not. But you'll notice there's also all these little superscripts with a bunch of highlights. Those are actually all individual slides. So all of the slides that you'd be looking at, in the script, I had these superscripts to remind me to change to them. So here's like from the beginning, all of the script, or all of the slides. It's a lot of work. I don't know why I tried this hard, but I did. Look, it's a brother for the column. We got Bernard. Anyway, it's a lot of work. fairly well organized too. So that was the first ever thing. So then I did another episode 2 of the CONURE report. These next 4 videos, which are pretty good in my opinion. This was actually the best video I'd released since starting the channel. Ellen normalizing George W. Bush proves Trump derangement syndrome is real. What a fucking shit title. Holy shit, so verbose. But I was always posting these to BreadTube. And this one, because I got this one out relatively early. I remember before this taping of the CONURE report episode 2, I wrote the script for this because it was like a breaking news thing. Literally like the entire night. I think I got like an hour or 2 of sleep and then I had to go to work. And then I got back from work and then I taped the CONURE report episode 2. Absolute fucking mad lad. But I got it done. And this was actually the best video I had. I think it got to like 2K views, which was really big for me at the time, interestingly enough. Though some of these videos have gotten views recently because my other videos might lead people to look like, oh, well, what are the early videos like or whatever.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
And they were.
That I have ever heard.
They were big pieces of dog shit. That's not actually true. I think they were pretty good. I think my ability to do script writing is pretty good. I think these thumbnails are fine. They're not perfect. They're way over branded. And I think they're better than most like first ever thumbnails. I've certainly got a lot better. And that was pretty cool. And then the third CONURE CONURE report was an interview with Dylan Burns, who has actually been in Ukraine doing journalism about, you know, the war, which is wild. You know, some say without me interviewing Dylan here, he may not have even been able to get to Ukraine, take that information as he will. I'm just kidding. But he was already on a good path. I was just, you know, there along the ride like a stepping stone. Cool guy though. And then after that, it's 2 React videos. And then I stopped doing content because I was 1, moving, 2, burnt out, shockingly, after all the work I've just shown you. And then I reboot the channel after hiring Hypergressive to do the editing for 1 video every 4 days, which is still what we're doing. Because at the time back then, I did not have the money to hire an editor unless I was underpaying, and I didn't want to do that. So I did all the editing, all the shit myself while working a day job, and it was just not feasible long term. It was not sustainable. So yeah. Luckily, I got into a better living situation where I had more excess money to be able to spend. And then, yeah, we just keep on moving throughout the year. And here we are. Still putting out long-ass goddamn videos, but not scripted anymore. Everything I do is off the cuff. Everything I do is not scripted. It's all live reacts for the most part. Sometimes I've already looked at what we're looking at, pre-watching, as some may say. This kind of style of video, I like doing a lot more. But it does require a lot more effort than in React video. Because essentially, when I do a video like this is an hour and 10-minute long video. It's essentially the same amounts of content as a video essay on a given topic. Because I cover a variety of topics here. Mostly because I have to upload a video every 4 days. I can't really, you know, afford to do more than that. So like, I'm essentially doing the amount of work for a video essay in real time on my stream. The prep work, the actual delivery of the content. And then luckily, I just don't have to edit it anymore. So when it comes to what's the biggest idea I have for a piece of content, I don't think I do. I'm not really an ideas person anymore when it comes to my content. I just kind of do things. I have some ideas. So I guess what I could say was the biggest ideas I have for a piece of content would be, I've got a list of a variety of video essays on my phone that I want to do, a bunch of different topics. I have like 10 or more video essays that I would want to do. So not stream segments, like actual video essays, like pre-recorded, all this kind of shit. Nicely edited B-roll footage, all that kind of shit that I want to do and have wanted to do. I've just not gotten around to it, unfortunately, and I don't think I ever will at this point, to be honest with you. I've got to sort out a bunch of other shit because content creation is a lot of shit for me for some reason. But anyway, so those I think would be the biggest. I've got like 10 or more on like the serious topics for the video essays. I've got, I think, also 10 or more of like sillier ideas, and they would be like 15 to 25 minutes long. They'd be shorter. And the idea was that I would, you know, produce those myself, because making a video essay like that, it kind of makes more sense to do like the editing yourself and all that, which I'm just not going to do anymore. So I don't know, I gotta revise that idea. I've got other small ideas for like collaborative work or whatever I could do, because I really gotta network more to grow my shit, because we're plateauing, especially on the Twitch. But anyway, when it comes to like what was your first attempt at making content, it's actually a funny story, and we're talking about this a lot, and I don't know how many of you care. But that's why, luckily, you've got the chapters on the bottom, if you're not watching this live, where you could just skip all of this if you wanted to a next topic or whatever. But some people might care. The actual first time I ever tried making content that I can remember was lyric videos on YouTube. And this was back when I was in middle school. I think like 7th, 8th grade. And I would be using Windows Movie Maker. And I'd be like picking whatever song. And I would line up the text to the part in the song that they come up in. But I didn't stick with that. Apparently, there's one video, which I will not let you know any information about, that actually did fairly well. But I was in fucking middle school at the time. So like I would upload the videos and then I would walk away because I didn't know what the fuck YouTube was. I didn't know what I was doing. So like it makes one wonder, like if I stuck with that, maybe I could have been like one of the biggest lyrics video YouTubers at the time and maybe made something of that. Especially because at the time on YouTube you could do that and you wouldn't get copyright claimed. You wouldn't have to share revenue because it was the Wild West back then. Also, I wanted to do Let's Plays at a certain point of like Minecraft way back when in like 2010, 11-ish. Also Let's Plays of like video games. Like I remember recording a Let's Play of me with my shitty Turtle Beach headset, no cam, of me playing Rocket Robot on Wheels, a very low-key kind of platforming Nintendo 64 game. Unfortunately, that hard drive is lost to the ether because that was an old pre-built PC that I inherited from my mom. It used to be hers, and I moved and I just tossed the shit, so I didn't stick with that. Then I was interested in making League of Legends content, a la Video Game Donkey, Cholera Ninja, if anybody remembers that name. Got famous off this Zinzao video that people thought was really funny, and also maybe mildly problematic in this day and age because we live in a snowflake utopia. That was a fun idea. Didn't really stick with that either, and then now here we are. So, as is the story of my life, I've had a million ideas, but never stuck to any of them, never really taken any of them as far as I could, and now I'm actually trying to do that kind of with my YouTube, with my Twitch, and also with Super Mario 64 120-star speedrunning. These are the two things, Mario speedrunning and Twitch streaming, YouTubing, that I've actually stuck with the longest in my life, except for drawing, which was a hobby and always has been, which I don't even do anymore. But that's for a variety of other reasons. I think we get into that later on in the video, in the questions. But yeah, so there's that. That was a very long-winded answer to the question, but hopefully it gave you something. Next up, we've got Dr. Derp on YouTube. How did you get into LGBT commentary as a subject for your content? Well, it's very simple. I'm gay. That's really it. I care about eliminating all forms of oppression in this life, in this world. Anti-queer bigotry and oppression being one of many, and I talk about it. There's really not much of a catalyst, really, other than that. It's an issue I care about, so I talk about it. That's really it. It's also pretty easy to talk about because, like, if you're not absolutely fucking stupid, the actual scientific and medical consensus on a variety of LGBT issues that are so-called up for debate aren't actually, because they are relatively settled in terms of the consensus that we have. Not settled in the sense that we know all we need to know or could know, but enough to be able to defeat the arguments of the bigots that would hope to oppress queer people. So because of that, it's also a very easy topic to talk about because it's very easy to cite all manner of data, studies, sources. Generally speaking, the arguments that the right wing will put up that are anti-LGBT are also really dumb and bad. So it's easy to clown on them as well. So it's just kind of easy to talk about. So that's also helpful, but it's not the only thing I talk about. Next up, we got Refreb on YouTube. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? I think you do really great in that department. Your views and opinions on things are similar to mine, and I'd like to see more from you. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. Your content is already as good as it is. Well, luckily for you, I don't need your permission to do goddamn anything, motherfucker. But no, I haven't really. And the reason for that is because I do not have the capacity to adhere to strict schedules. I cannot do it. My brain is small. It is plagued with ADHD, depression shit. I already spend a lot of time doing chores, exercise, and wasting my own fucking time. I cannot start a podcast unless I'm doing it on my own, which I kind of already do in the form of my YouTube videos, because for a lot of my YouTube videos, you can watch them without actually looking at what we're doing, though for some of it, you can't. So the only utility to starting a podcast for me would be to start a podcast with other people. And I just do not want to be responsible for their time in that way because I am not responsible with my own time in that way. And I think it would be unfair to them. I just don't have the confidence in myself to be able to do that. And so, like, generally speaking, it's not a terrible idea. I mean, it's pretty easy. Everybody has a podcast nowadays, when in Rome, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. I'm just not especially interested in it. I also don't know what we would talk about. I would imagine, you'd just be shooting the shit about whatever. I don't know who I'd do the podcast with. I don't know. Generally speaking, not a big fan of podcasts for me personally. I don't really listen to a lot of them. Actually, the only podcast I listen to nowadays is the Fear and podcast with Azan and Will Neff. But that's just because Hassan and Will Neff are there, and I like both of those guys. Other than that, I'm just watching Twitch live streams and YouTube videos. So unlikely that we'll see a podcast featuring me at any point in time in the near future, unfortunately. But luckily, we upload videos every 4 days here on the YouTube channel. So. Next up, we got Shark Attack 21 on YouTube. Why did you decide to go by CONURE on the internet? Also love your videos. Thank you. I am CONURE because it is a bird. That's literally it. Because it's a bird that I think is very cute. I think the name sounds cool. Here they are. This is a green cheek conure. This is a sun conure. This is a cinnamon green cheek conure. And also, here's all the rest of them, apparently. They're very cute. Oh, wow, this is a really good quality image, too. I'm a big fan of birds. I've grown up around birds my entire life. My mom and grandma have had birds, so I like them, generally speaking. I think they're cool animals. I will never have a bird. And generally speaking, my take has always been that birds should never have been domesticated to begin with. I feel like that kind of just makes sense. To cage a thing that is normally flying is pretty fucked. Also, they're incredibly social animals. So to have them on their own is pretty fucked, so you have to have multiple. Also, the amounts of effort, money, labor, time that goes into caring for birds is way too much for literally any person to be able to handle, outside of like octogenarian old people whose birds will probably outlive them, who have all the time in the world and some money to be able to do that. Other than that, they never should have been domesticated. However, we cannot close Pandora's box on that, unfortunately. The only way you can kind of affect that is by stopping people from breeding and heavily incentivizing those that do have the means to adopt birds, because there are so many birds out there that do need loving homes. One, because they do commonly, like the greater parrots, like the macaws and whatnot, the cockatoos, do tend to outlive their owners because they live, essentially, human in captivity can live up to the length of the average human lifespan. So, like, that's the best thing you could do currently, is to stop breeders from breeding these birds, except for, like, sanctuaries who are trying to, like, keep endangered species alive and all that kind of shit. Obviously, we make exceptions for that, and then encourage people to adopt who can. And then hopefully, you know, over time, naturally, these birds would live their fullest lives. And then at a certain point, you just start to curtail the actual domestication and breeding of these birds overall. Keep it to the sanctuaries and places like that to try to keep a handle on the actual populations of endangered species, obviously take care of the environment, nature, and make it so that the birds in the wild are doing fine in terms of population, and, you know, go from there. Because generally speaking, most people don't have what it takes to have a bird. To have a bird is essentially, it's like to have a toddler human being, but for the rest of your life, potentially. Nobody has the potential to do that. Like, a lot of parents are very excited when their kids turn 18, 21, and are able to move out of the house, okay? You don't got it. I can guarantee you. Next up, we've got Seb Obzen. Do you have any interest in participating in political discussions/debate panels? I really think you'd bring a valuable perspective to them. I get asked this question a lot, and it would be a very good networking opportunity, or at least it would have been. I think that scene has kind of fallen off +L+ratio when it comes to like panels, when it comes to debates, like getting specific people on. The simple answer to why I don't participate in political debates is because I don't hate myself. I'm just kidding. Generally speaking, I'm not the most confrontational person. As you could tell, I don't really get involved in drama on the timeline. I'm not a big fan of, you know, all that kind of shit, unfortunately for me, because it would be, you know, beneficial to my brand to do that, to engage with it. If I was to do more networking like that, I would probably be doing better and having more success, higher numbers on my YouTube and Twitch. But I don't, because it's just not a thing that I'm interested in doing myself. That being said, I like watching them. I don't like watching debate panels. I think that shit sucks. But I do like watching debates because I am a filthy debate pervert as a spectator. Because I understand that it's blood sports. I understand that it's entertainment. I understand that it's professional wrestling. Except not really, because, like, it's not scripted. You know what I mean? I'm not, like, watching debates to try to arrive at the truth and try to, you know, have this discussion of ideas in the open marketplace. Fuck off. It's blood sports. It's just for fun. And I enjoy watching it for that. And I also, every now and then, I will pick up, like, rhetorical approaches to a variety of topics that I can use in my own content outside of debates as well, which is, you know, helpful as well. So I don't think I'll do that myself, but I do, you know, watch them. I think it's fun. Next up, we've got Caffeined MTG on Twitter, who asks, only question I would want to ask is, what's been the key to your channel's success, other than the obviously consistently based and nuanced takes? I guess it depends on how you define success. I am not necessarily in a position that I would consider like super successful. I'm certainly more successful than I ever have been, and hopefully that trend continues. And I'm doing better than a lot of other people that are starting up and trying to do this kind of shit. I think the only things I do well when it comes to my channel's success was that I got lucky and became friends with a guy before he got very popular as a content creator himself, and then he did, and then now by proximity, I have a bunch of people who watch him watching me. That's literally it. I'm not joking. This is not self-deprecation. I am very well aware that that is the primary reason for why I have the viewer base that I have, and why I started off on a better foot, at least, you know, over time. In the beginning, I was like a no viewer Andy for about a year. But after that, and after I started like having a YouTube and all that shit, it's when it started to pick up. That is the reason why. I just got lucky. Because, like, I don't do a lot of the stuff that I should be doing to grow my brand outside of that. Like, that is a form of networking, but, like, it wasn't an intentional one. Because how the fuck was I supposed to know that this man was going to get, like, super popular, right? So I am aware that people would not still be here after finding me through him if there wasn't something of value in this content that they enjoyed watching. I understand that, you know, I'm pretty confident in a variety of, you know, things, like my ability to make the content that I make and all this kind of shit. But, like, the takes that I have, the rhetoric that I use, I think is pretty decent for the use case of the videos that I make. So other than that, it's just the usual shit that anybody will say when it comes to how to do well as a content creator. So generally speaking, people ask me, you know, how do, you know, what you got any tips for starting content creator? The biggest one is, networking is the primary and most consistent way that you'll ever grow your brand, i.e. getting eyeballs on you from other existing content creators and sharing community with them, collaborating with them, debating them, all this kind of shit. That is the primary way that you're ever going to grow a brand on any social media, kind of like how the social media is formatted. Also, having multiple different social medias, up to an extent. So if you're a Twitch streamer, having a YouTube channel where you upload like segments from your Twitch streams is really good because discoverability on YouTube is better and you can bring people from that platform to Twitch. Essentially, if you're a Twitch streamer, you use places like TikTok where discoverability is absolutely wild right now. I don't do this. I don't take my own advice. So you want to use other social medias to essentially advertise your Twitch live stream or your YouTube live stream or your YouTube channel, etc., etc. So like my Twitter is my biggest social media account outside of my YouTube. My Twitch is actually incredibly small by comparison. It's just the easiest one to monetize, and I get more money from it than YouTube because YouTube ad revenue for political content is dog shit, and I don't really get, you know, that big of views to be able to get that kind of money. And then other than that, it's really just style, I guess, at that point, like the kind of rhetoric you use, the way you present your content. I'll always say that if you're on a budget, prioritizing good quality audio is going to be better than prioritizing good quality video. If you have to choose one of the two to put some money in as an investment, people can deal with bad quality video. Bad quality audio, on the other hand, really grating on the ears. People don't like to sit through, you know, incredibly bad audio. So if you got to dump some money into some shit, that would be the one to go for. But that's, I don't know. At this point, I'm literally just saying, you know, like the standard shit. The other key to my success has also been luck. So it was luck in the fact of what I talked about earlier, and it was also luck in terms of being able to anger Nazis on poll to brigade this video, and then I get to counter brigade it because I got connections, and then it got pretty good viewership, and I got decent views from then on. Also, I got lucky again when this video, Why Do Conservative Men Love Anime Girls, also got hate rated, this time by Tradcath incel Nazis, which boosted it in the algorithm, surprisingly. And then, you know, the follow-up video that I made both times also did fairly well as well. Classic. And then other than that, I got exceptionally lucky. The most viewed video on my channel was me reacting to Jaden Animation's essentially coming out video about, you know, being not straight when she talked about being aro ace, where a lot of the people who are asking questions here have come from. This video got picked up in the algorithm. I got exceptionally lucky. I actually put this video out a week after that video came out, so I thought it wouldn't do that well because it's already been a week since it had been out. But shockingly, it still got picked up somehow. So that's cool. And then I made a follow-up video, you know, responding to a variety of the comments I got on it, which also did very well, which I think is a good move to do when that kind of thing happens, because it, you know, makes the people who are new that are sticking around feel more seen. This video also gets recommended after this one a lot because it's of a similar topic. The algorithm will do that. And, you know, this video also has a substantial amount of views. And then now we're kind of plateaued. This video, the Auntie Diaries video, was pretty good. It came out kind of late, but I was featured in a clip on like Hip Hop DX, I think. And it, you know, a lot of people came to this video from that, got pretty decent views. So it's all luck, essentially. Like the amount of it that's not luck is like the actual content, the creation of it. I think my thumbnails are also very good and I make them all myself. And yeah, other than that, like we've kind of fallen off plus L plus ratio a little bit, but we're doing okay. I cannot complain too much. So next up, we got Annie from the Patreon. I think this is our first Patreon question. What were your goals when you started streaming, and how have they changed with time as your career has grown? So for those of you who don't know, Annie, friend of the show, also at will moderator in my community, very cool person, also a streamer whom you should go follow. So when it comes to my goals when I started streaming, because I live in America and I've been poor my whole life, my goal when I started streaming was unfortunately to replace my day job. So I'd been working at this point in the food service workforce for what, like 6 years or something? And I was sick of it. I was not having a good time, shockingly, even though I was good at my job. So I wanted to do something I actually gave a damn about. So I started streaming. I first wanted to do like video essay, news and politics type shit, but that fell off. And then I started streaming. So, because every single hobby I've ever had, I have to also take into account, okay, so the amount of time that I'm putting into this, is it possible that I can somehow monetize it and make money from it because I need money to live in this godforsaken shithole we call the United States of America? I started streaming, obviously, when I had a day job still, and I did both. So that was the goal, really, was essentially to be able to make enough money doing content to be able to start cutting back on the hours I worked at my day job. So I was working 40, and then eventually I was able to cut it down to 35. Then eventually I was able to cut it down to 30. And I think the lowest I got to was 25. I was making enough money on Twitch to be able to support that part of my bills that I would lose from that. Not living lavishly by any means. I lived in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey. It's the only place I could fucking afford. And yeah, then COVID happened. I got put on furlough like I talked about before, got unemployment. And then eventually I got lucky and was able to move to a place where my bills are incredibly low, luckily, because I can share living costs with other people. And now here I am. So in the way that how they've changed, I don't fucking know, to be honest with you. I'm kind of just doing this thing. Like, I guess the main goal would be to be able to turn this into a long-term project, which I don't think I'm at yet. Like, if God forbid shit goes sideways and I have to live on my own, I'm gonna have to get a day job because I don't think I'll be able to afford to stay in Seattle with these housing prices on just this income. Or I would have to move somewhere that's more affordable, probably, you know, have a lower quality of life and also still get a day job and not work as many hours as I might have to otherwise. So the goal would be to not have that, to have a potential to, you know, should shit go sideways, I have to, you know, live on my own at some point, I'm able to do that. The ideal would be that I can turn this into a super long-term thing, and it's essentially like allows me to, I mean, to say retire from it sounds ridiculous right now because I'm not even close to that point. But that would be cool to like just have enough money in the backlog to be able to do whatever the fuck I want, essentially, with my time, continue doing content and all this kind of shit. So in terms of have they changed, not really, no. My goals have not changed at all because it's always been, can I put food on my plate, clothes on my back, and a roof over my head? And luck has taken care of a lot of that. And, you know, the kindness of friends. So next up, we got your girl Aomi, the Shamanite, on Discord, who asks, will there be merch? If so, will there be canoe merch? Well, you kind of repeated yourself, unless you mean you know, a piece of merch with literally a canoe on it. For those YouTube frogs out there who don't necessarily know, people call me Canoe as a nickname because it sounds like CONURE, but also it is a naval vessel, and that's funny. And some may say I actually invented the term and planted the idea in the minds of the people, and now they all call me that shit, so I essentially got to choose my own nickname. Get fucked. But yes, I do want to release merch because I have a White Forest site. I do have access to working with the co-op that's been formed to do apparel, which is really cool. All I have to do is give them the design, and then I could, you know, start selling it from my website, conure.cc. But I just haven't made that design yet. I also want to make sticker sheets of like stylized versions of my emotes, like Mr. Peepo Sit over here, Conure Sit, as well as other things related to me and my brand, because I think that would be cool. But I just haven't had the motivation, the drive, the energy to actually put pen to paper and make those designs, because I would want them to be good. For the sticker sheet is whatever, like I'll just do whatever. But when it comes to a shirt that I would make, let's say, I would want it to be really good. I've got some ideas, I just haven't really fucked around with it. So hopefully at some point we do. And, you know, you best believe I'll be advertising that shit. Next up, we've got motherfucking Petrichorus on YouTube, who asks, hypothetically, when people, hypothetically human people, as opposed to the other kind, in your audience find you attractive, how comfortable are you with those comments being expressed? Elaboration. You talk about the unfortunate fetishization of femininity a lot, and from my understanding, you consider yourself pretty feminine in regards to your appearance. I was wondering if you tend to feel more empowered or bothered by people expressing attraction to you, and to what extent you're fine with people saying out-of-pocket things, like not straight-up harassment, blah, blah, and to what extent do you appreciate people praising your aesthetic plus appearance in general? So, I am not the biggest fan. I do not like being sexualized. However, I will say that the kinds of comments that I'm fine with are like, you're cute, you're pretty, this outfit is really cool, all that kind of like very simple, normal, some may say standard compliments about that kind of shit, but I'm not really looking for it. Like, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I don't know if it does for other people, but when I post a selfie and a bunch of people are like, oh my God, you're so cute, like that doesn't really do much for me. Like, obviously I appreciate it. I mean, it's a kind thing to say, but like when it's like randos on the internet, like it's just like another thing people are saying to me. So yeah, that's the extent of it. You can kind of tell what kind of things I'm okay with by the comments on my selfies that I like on Twitter, that I favorite or whatever it's called, that I hit the heart button on. But other than that, I do not like being sexualized at all. Shockingly, as a person who is voluntarily celibate and not necessarily interested in, attaining sex in real life, having such comments sent my way, not really a big fan. And generally speaking, the standard comments that I talk about, it's whatever. It's not expected. I don't feel any type of way, really. Unless they're, like, content creator friends of mine. So, like, if Denims is, like, commenting on my shit and it's, like, out of pocket, like, oh my god, step on me or some stupid bullshit like that, that's more permissible for me because that's a person who I am friends with. You know what I mean? That's, like, a different context. And if you're talking about, like, me, like, if you find me in real life in the wild, like a wild Pokemon, ignore me. Ideally, I'm sorry. I am not very social. I don't really like the idea, unfortunately, of being a public figure in that way, even though I'm kind of there. Obviously, like, if you come up to me and you're like, hello, are you CONURE? Could we get a picture? Blah, 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 blah. If you're not weird about it, it's whatever. But, like, I don't know. It just feels weird to me. Obviously, as, like, a feminine person on the internet, as a trans person on the internet, as a person who talks about the political shit that I talk about, and the ways that I talk about it, some would say sometimes inflammatory ways. Random people approaching me on the street being like, oh, I am aware of you from the internet. Kind of weird from the jump. I just don't think that that's a thing that I would want to do. But, like, it is what it is. Like, I've been with people in real life who have been approached, and when they're like, oh my god, are you this person online? And it's usually, like, a nice experience. Like, they ask for a picture, and then they, go about their day. But, like, I don't know. For me personally, I would rather not. And so any untoward comments in real life as well, even worse than if you were to do them online. Anyway. Next up, we've got Anna Wadsworth, who asks on YouTube, when did you first get into politics? Very simple. Here is my political journey. I started off as an apolitical gamer bro. This was like way back when by this point. I started off as an apolitical gamer bro because I was very young, obviously. Eventually, I became an Obama liberal, and the reason for this was because I, as a history class assignment, was tasked with watching the Obama v. Romney epic rap battles of history. No, I'm just kidding. The Obama v. Romney debate, one of them, the presidential debate. And I did do the assignment, obviously, and when I was watching, I was like, huh, this is kind of interesting, actually. I was a sicko from early on and was interested in that kind of shit for some reason. So then I remember on the actual election day for the Obama-Romney 2012 election, I was actually watching the results come in, which was interesting. But I wasn't, like, really super keyed into, like, what my politics were. I just knew Obama was my guy because I did not like Romney. And I've always been, like, fairly liberal in my politics, I guess, though I never really thought too much about it. Never been conservative, that's for sure. Even though I grew up in a very conservative area, I was able to, sidestep all of that, thankfully. Got a lot of conservative family. After that, I ended up finding TYT, the Young Turks on YouTube, and then through TYT found Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, and watching their videos, TYT and Kyle's, got me into watching political commentary on YouTube, and that became like a regular thing I did. I became more interested in politics from that point forward. So at that point, I became a Bernie Sanders progressive, where I was interested in Bernard because I had been watching that content beforehand. I forget how I found it, but I did. I had been watching that content beforehand, and then Bernie ends up running, and I'm like, wow, I like this guy's politics. I like his policy positions. That was back in the 2015, 2016 eventual primary. And then from then on, I just call myself a socialist now. I know I'm anti-capitalist. The exact denomination of what kind of leftist I am, I honestly don't give a fuck about. I'm sorry if you want a label. I literally just call myself socialist, leftist, anti-capitalist. That's it. I have not done enough reading to know what exact denomination I am. All I know is I have a bunch of policies that I support, and I support moving away from the system of capitalism. That's it. That's where I'm at now. So I was never on the right. Like, I didn't escape the far right pipeline or whatever, which is surprising considering that, I was in a conservative area, like I say, have a lot of conservative family members. Luckily for me, my mom and dad are not necessarily the most conservative. They're conservative in some ways, as a lot of people of their generation are, but they are not super conservative in other ways. Like, I was actually able to talk my dad into voting for Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary. So that was cool. But he did vote for Obama, as far as I'm aware, in at least 2012, if not 2008. So he's always been, not a Republican. Next up, we got Winter Cybron. Do you believe all Republicans are bad? Yes. I am bipartisan, but I live in a Republican state with parents that are very accepting of me, but they are also very Republican. I asked because of your statements on our conservatives, which agreed. So the easiest answer that I can give to this is that each individual Republican as a human being may or may not be bad, right? They might be nice people in person. They might be like even socially progressive in some ways, but economically, fiscally conservative or whatever. But that doesn't really matter because what matters is their vote. Who do they vote for? Who gets into office as a result of who they're voting for? And what does that person do when they're in office? The current project of the Republican Party is to demonize all minority groups, oppress them as much as possible, try to achieve white supremacy, and essentially make everybody's lives as bad as possible, while cutting taxes for the mega wealthy and deregulating corporations, destroying the planet, etc., etc. All those things, I would say, are pretty bad. And it doesn't fucking matter how nice each individual Republican is. If a Republican sees me on the street and says, hello, how are you doing? And then goes on with their day, well, that's a nice experience. And if I happen to learn they're a Republican, cool. It was still a nice experience because they said hello. But after I've learned they're a Republican, well, now they're bad. Because the Republican Party is bad. That's the answer to that question, I guess. Next up, we've got Zachary Chad on YouTube asks, are trains obsolete? No. In fact, they're more efficient than cars. Look up Not Just Bikes videos, look up Alan Fisher's videos, look up City Nerds videos on all these topics. Trains are exceptionally efficient at moving large volumes of people and freight, and the only reason why they're kind of obsolete in North America is because we're fucking stupid, make our cities like we're children playing Sim City for the first time, and essentially have decided to allow the automobile industry and the fossil fuel industry to deep dick us into the ending of our fucking planet. So that's cool. Another reason why Republicans are bad, also Democrats too, because they don't also, go against that shit as much as they should. Wow. I will say this, I took a train from a city in one state to the next, and it took longer than driving a car. Yeah, because the system is not built like it should be. It is inefficient because it's not been kept up with since like the 1900s. All of our cities have been built around the automobile, which is why the automobile becomes the most efficient form of transport. The problem is that individual automobiles are inherently inefficient because of the fact of geometry. You can only fit so many automobiles, these heavy-ass hunks of steel, into one location at a single time, and if you're going to force every single person who needs to commute to use it, because it is the best option, you're just going to have a massive amount of space that is just used to move these fucking vehicles, when you could just have some trains move along a smaller amount of space, fit infinitely more people in them, also cost less over time in terms of the infrastructural development, etc., etc. The only reason why a train, a bus, biking, walking would ever be less efficient than driving an automobile is if the cities you're in are not designed for those things. Visit literally any European country that has walkability, bikeability, and better public transit. It's like a different world. It's like a fairy tale. People in the US, when they visit there, they're like, holy shit, you could just walk down the street. There's houses here, but also there's a business here. You can go to the cafe while waking up, just walk to it. That's so crazy. I have to get in my car in my suburb and back in the United States, and I have to drive 30 minutes to get to any part of the fucking town where I can do anything other than exist. Come on now. Let's get serious. Anyway. Essentially, you get what you invite. If you make a city have the most efficient form of transport being automobiles, then you're going to have more cars. If you make the city more efficient for automobiles, then you're going to have even more cars. If you make the city more efficient for bikes, for walking, for public transit, alternatives to automobiles, which are cheaper not only for the people using them, but also for the state to develop and maintain them, you will get more of those and people using them. And it's better for the environment. Kind of important. Next up, we've got Comrade Zevia on YouTube asks, what's your opinion on social democracy and liberalism? Liberalism is cringe, but it's better than conservatism. Social democracy is essentially the best form of capitalism you're ever going to get, and ideally we would move past it, though I am amicable to some ideas of social democracy being a good stepping stone on the way to a post-capitalist organization of the economy. A lot of these social democratic reforms that might be more possible nowadays in a pragmatic sense, I do support, like moving to a single-payer healthcare system, like decommodifying housing, which aren't necessarily only social democratic reforms, but you know what I mean. So, like, social democracy, because it's not anti-capitalist, I'm not the biggest fan, but it's certainly better than liberalism, And liberalism is certainly better than Republicans, conservatives, fascism, you know? So that's that, really. In the current context of the political climate that we exist in, social democracy is the best we're going to get when it comes to politicians in the United States, unfortunately. So that's just what we got to deal with. Next up, we've got, what are your takes on political theory? Me, as someone on the left, yet has not read a single page of theory. I'm interested in your response. Eater on Discord. My answer is I don't read theory because I've got ADHD depression. I am neurodivergent, and also I don't hate myself. So I don't read these words from dead men just because I'm not particularly interested, to be honest with you. I'm joking around, obviously. You know, there is stuff that you can learn from the political theorists of the past, and you can try to apply it to the modern day. You can run into bad problems of people who essentially treat their political theory books like fundamentalist religious people treat their Bible, which I don't think is good. You should probably try to tailor the things you learn from those books to the modern day because the context is wildly different. But yeah, I've not read much theory either. I have read like half of A Brief History of Neoliberalism by David Harvey, which is not theory, but is also interesting information. And I happen to have 3 volumes of Das Kapital on ebook that I just have not read because it's dry and boring. But yeah, so it's just not, it's not big for me. If you're into theory, go for it. I don't give a shit. Also from Eater on Discord, who asks, how would you label yourself on the political spectrum? Socialist, social democrat, Marxist, socialist, other, or do you not subscribe to any ideological label, describing yourself as on the left or right? Yeah, I'm above all labels. I'm just That's actually kind of true. Like I said before, I call myself a socialist. I know I'm anti-capitalist. That's about the extent of it. I don't care enough to be particular about which denomination I'm in for the social club of leftism on the internet and the clout that I could get from it. I do not care. I just have policies I support. All right, now we'll be moving on to some general interest stuff. Wow. Dummy on YouTube asks, what's your favorite song, color, and food, favorite animal? Favorite song, don't have one. I've got a whole bunch. I've got a list. Favorite color, purple, obviously. Imagine my shock. Food, don't have one, though I make myself a Chipotle avocado egg wrap every single goddamn day, essentially. It's, so you got tortilla, you got half an avocado, you got fried eggs, you got spinach, you can put sour cream or cream cheese on that bitch. Put your choice of cheese. I usually go for mozzarella. You dip that shit in Chipotle mayonnaise or Chipotle aioli, and it's good. And it's easy to make, very quick, and also nutritionally dense. You've got the protein from the avocado and the egg. You've got the good, healthy fats from the avocado as well. You've got the fiber and essential vitamins and minerals from the spinach. And it tastes nice, so that's cool. Cleanup is also very simple. 1 pan, because you're just frying eggs. And like it's like, depending on how you're making it, it's like anywhere from 500 to 800 calories. Pretty filling. Nice. Next up, we've got Evie S on YouTube. Best and worst pizza toppings. Also, what is your favorite breed of cat? So the best pizza topping, cheese. You cannot go wrong with it. Just a plain pizza with extra cheese. That being said, if that doesn't count, because whenever I'm eating pizza, I'm trying to have more than that, obviously. I think, personally, mushroom and spinach is based. That's my go-to. Because my problem with pizza is that it is a waste of calories. It is a fun food. It's a lot of carbs. It's a lot of useless calories. So you want to get as much out of it as you possibly can. Spinach and mushroom, while I enjoy both of those things, are also fairly nutritious. You get the protein from the mushroom, the essential vitamins and minerals and fiber from both. Pretty PogChamp, and it tastes pretty good in my opinion. Worst pizza topping? I don't actually know. I can eat just about any pizza. I don't actually know. I've not tried Hawaiian, the ham and pineapple thing. So if I was to try it and not like it, I mean, that would be the classic response, but I don't fucking know. Favorite breed of cat? Probably Maine Coon, the big boys, the fucking mountain lions, but domesticated, but they're not actually. They're actually like house cats, but they're just fucking huge. Look at these motherfuckers. What? What is that? It's a goddamn dog, but in cat form. Hello? Why would you not want this? They theorize that Artemy, the cat that I live with, is half Maine Coon, meaning that that's why he's so fucking big. He's not overweight. The last time he went to the vet, he's in perfectly healthy weight. However, he's just big. Like, he's got a bigger skeleton than the average cat. Because they think he's part Maine Coon. The reason for this is because apparently they have like a longer period of growth than other cat breeds, so they just get bigger. And they're really cool and cute. Very majestic. And look at them as a baby. Wow. Next up, Helly24 on YouTube asks, what is your passion or dream job? You're looking at it. That's not actually true. I don't actually know. What kind of advice would you give in regards to picking up your pieces and putting them back together, getting your shit together, basically? Well, that's a very broad question that requires a lot of context that I don't have. When it comes to my passion or dream job, I don't have one. Never have. I've always had a collection, shotgun spread of a variety of different things I've had a interest in. None of them have ever gone anywhere, except for now this content thing kind of is, and the Mario speedrunning kind of is, and then I've just stuck to it for a while. I don't know how much hay will be made of it, but I enjoy doing it. And that's really it. The only other thing I've done throughout my entire life is draw, but I don't do that anymore. I think we get to that later on in the questions, so I'll shelve that for now. When it comes to what kind of advice you would give in regards to getting your shit back together, I don't actually know. All I know is that you should seek any kind of help that you could procure in the form of friends and family, community members, therapy, any shit like that. But like outside of knowing your specific situation, which I don't need to know, I ain't got much else. My apologies. Next up from Yokai on YouTube, do you like cooking? Who is the best cook in the house? I am okay with cooking. I don't like it or hate it. I prefer not to do it, but I do it. I did it as a job, not like as an actual proper cook, but I did some cooking, but I was mostly just preparing food. I think I'm pretty decent at it. As in terms of who's the best cook in the house, it's a tie between me and Vermin. I don't actually know. I lean toward me just because I'm me, but I don't actually know. The food we both produce is both good. So it would really come down to the particulars of like the mechanics of the cooking. Cleanliness, the efficiency, and all this kind of shit. And that at that point, I don't know or really care. It's not a competition. The worst cook is definitely Vaush, though. Next up, we got Super Pancakes, who asks, when did you learn photo editing? This is actually interesting. For any Zoomers out there, you might not be familiar with this. But the reason why I got into photo editing was way back in the day when I was in middle school. I was on a forum for animation, and I was interested in that as well, obviously, because I was watching a lot of like independent animation on the internet, stuff on Newgrounds, all this kind of shit. So I ended up on that forum, and then in that forum, they would have, under all of your posts, you would have an avatar with your username, and then you would also have a signature. So you'd have the text you would post or whatever, and then there would be a line, and then it'd be your signature, which always appeared under all of your posts. And you could put any kind of text there, links or whatever. You could also put images. So forum signatures became a thing in the form of the images for that. So I can get you some examples. Get some good examples. Here we go. This is from Reddit. This person says, my gaming forum signatures from 15 or 16 years ago. Here they are. It was stuff like this, where people would be using Photoshop, GNU image manipulation program, GIMP, whatever the fuck else, paint.net, in order to make stuff that looked like this. You'd have like the name of the person. So their fucking username seems to be Tyrant. And you got other shit here. You do a bunch of cool stuff. And I thought that was neat. So I wanted to get, dabble in that as well. I learned how to do some stuff. I was never particularly good at it, but it did get me familiar with things like Photoshop, GIMP, paint.net, etc. And then now, the only thing I really do for that is my overlays, which are fairly bare bones and simple. They used to be more complicated, but you don't really need that. And my thumbnails, which we've already gone through in this video. And I do a shitload of work for my thumbnails that I probably shouldn't. But I enjoy it, and I think it's pretty fun. So I'll give you an example. And we might as well use the most recent one. So we could just use the most recent video. So as of the recording of this video, the most recent video we have today is Conservatives Are a Danger to Children is the name of the title. The thumbnail should always correspond to that and vice versa. You tell the viewer what they're going to see from the video, what you can in words in the title, and then you tell them what you can't say in words in the thumbnail and vice versa. So I knew we were going to talk about DeSantis, Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc., in the video. So we got DeSantis on the left here in the SS outfit, which I think is really funny. We've got Marjorie Taylor Greene looking weird as fuck on the right. And they're black and white when they normally wouldn't be, but that's for the purposes of the thumbnail we're about to see. I knew I was going to talk about libs of TikTok as well, so I put the logo in the middle, and it's spaced well enough. So now that I got the libs of TikTok colors here, I know I'm going to use both the cyan and the red of the TikTok branding, because I might as well. So then I made both of these people black and white, because I knew that they weren't going to be their original colors, because it would be too many colors and too noisy when it comes to the color scheme, because I like very minimalist color schemes. So then we've got the text. The text is going to correspond to the title. And I put text on almost all of my thumbnails, because my theory is that once you learn how to read as a human being, anytime you see words anywhere, you're going to read them automatically. Meaning that if there's words on a thumbnail, you're going to read those, meaning you're going to take like a picosecond extra time to look at and analyze that thumbnail, which might influence your decision to actually click on it. And also it gives additional information about the actual thumbnail. So next up, we need the background because there's nothing there right now. Backgrounds are usually pretty useless. You don't really need them to be super informative about what the video is about. However, if they correlate to the video and if they add texture to the background, I think that's very helpful. So what I've decided to do is I took the Boston Children's Hospital, which is one of the subjects of the video because the deranged right-wingers are attacking it for providing care to kids. Very strange. So I took this picture of it, made it black and white, fuck with the levels a little bit, blurred it because it doesn't have to be super detailed because it's in the background. Then I put over top of that the red and then cyan from the TikTok logo with multiply layer modes because I knew I was going to do that because we have the Libs of TikTok logo. And then there's that. So the thing is that it's too bright in the background for me personally. It's not the worst, and it's fine, but for me, it doesn't look as good, especially at low resolution like you would see for a thumbnail. And then now there's this little line in the middle here that's missing, so then we put a little border. We've got a little dark gradient on the bottom to make the faces pop out more and also blend in the stuff in the background here a little bit more. And yeah, that's all she wrote. It's a lot of shit. It's a lot of shit. I could probably be doing better. But I think it's pretty good, and I enjoy my thumbnails because they're like my only creative outlet right now, except for my actual content, which doesn't feel the same as like my old creative outlet of drawing. So, yeah. That being said, I would never do this shit as a job outside of my own content. Like, I would never make thumbnails for other people. Fuck that shit. It's too much work. Next up, we've got Mr. Carrot, who asks, what media do you consume the most? YouTube videos, particularly political content. I watch a lot of it. I watch a lot of Beau of the Fifth Column. I watch a lot of Majority Report with Sam Cedar. I watch a lot of Hasanabi. I watch a lot of Vaush. I also watch a bunch of Twitch live streamers of the same vein, smaller streamers and YouTubers like Shark300, Gremlo, Mafia Jinx, Carter. And now that I'm naming people, if I can't remember literally everybody, then I'm going to feel bad. Outside of that, I also watch a lot of Will Neff, though I would like to watch more. I'm just not watching as many Twitch live streams anymore. But I do watch his YouTube videos. But that's the main shit. Oh, also a lot of urbanism, city planning type shit. Not Just Bikes, Alan Fisher, City Nerd, stuff like that. Oh, also, I guess when it comes to the other YouTube shit I also watch a lot of Super Mario 64 related content. So I watch Simply, Cheese Speedrunning, Liam, Squeaks. I watch a lot of their Super Mario 64 related content and non-related content if they ever release it. But it's usually about SM64. Big fan of that as well. Next up, we got The Last Mate on Twitter who asks, who is your favorite YouTuber? That's a hard question. Outside of me, because I'm the best one, obviously. I don't actually know. I think it would probably be... So this is obviously limited to YouTube. I would have to look at a variety of metrics. I think Beau of the Fifth Column is probably my favorite YouTuber, though. When it comes to, as a viewer, watching his content, the information I get from it, the rhetorical strategies that I get from it as well, I really like. I think he, as a actual content creator, is very good at what he does, leaning into the fact that he is from the South. He's got the Southern aesthetic going on. He talks about these topics in a way that is not necessarily partisan. The idea being that people will see a bearded man in his work shed and be more willing to listen to him if they wouldn't otherwise because they're more conservative or right-leaning, and then be, you know, exposed to his, some would say, anarchist ideas, right? I find that to be an exceptionally good tactic in the diversity of tactics that is left-wing content creation online. I'm a big fan. Also, he's been, supportive of me since I put out my first ever video. I asked him if he would be okay with me featuring him in my first ever video on my YouTube channel, and he said that was fine. And he also followed me and retweeted it when I put it out, so that was cool. There's a bunch of other YouTubers that I like as well, but if you put a gun to my head and make me choose one, it would probably be Beau of the Fifth Column. Next up, we got... What are your favorite Pokemon/Digimon? So I like that you say what are, which you give me some room for multiple options. My favorite Pokemon ever, I'm not the biggest Pokemon nerd, but I think my favorite Pokemon ever is probably Ghastly. He's like one of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon anyway, and my favorite Pokemon overall. He's just a cute little ball. Look at this man. He's just a cute little fucking spooky ball. Look at him. He's silly. And I like him. Haunter is also kind of cool. And my hottest take is I think Gengar is bad. I think Gengar is bad character design. I think Gengar is literally just spooky Pikachu, and we've already got Pikachu. It's literally the first ever, like, major ghost-type Pokemon in Gen 1. You've got an incorporeal fucking spirit ball, which is a cool idea. Then you've got more of, like, a poltergeist-looking guy, like a more, you know, malicious spirit. And then Gengar is just spooky Pikachu. Like, Gengar should have been some incomprehensible eldritch being that is fucking scary as hell. You could still make him, like, in the style of the anime. But, like, I don't know. He's just lacking. He doesn't have that oomph. He doesn't have that wow factor. So, like, if you look at a character like Darkrai or whatever, Like, this is a fine design that, like, if you did something like this instead of Gengar, I think it would be kind of cool. I don't know if it would have to be 1-to-1. Like, don't fucking quote me on that shit. This is hypothetical shit. Or, like, Giratina. Or Giratina. This guy's also kind of cool. I like when he's a worm. Anyway, I like ghost-type Pokemon. When it comes to Digimon, I don't actually know because I never watched, played, or looked at Digimon at all. If I look it up, original Digimon. What is this? Is this all of them? I looked at original Digimon list. We got 54 of them here. What the fuck am I looking at, dude? This is some trash. I'm sorry. I like this guy. Cactuar. What is his name? Togemon. He's a fucking cactus with boxing gloves. What's not to like? I think he's my favorite of these. Okay? You forced my hand. There you go. Next up, we've got Thunder Thighs 57 on Twitter, who asks, what are some of your favorite artists, music, film, drawing, etc.? Music. I have too many. I go through waves. I have a variety of music genres that I enjoy. Do we get to music shit later on? Yeah, we get into music and media later on. So I think we'll shelve that for now. Favorite film artists? I don't actually know. I've always been partial to organized crime shit like Goodfellas, The Godfather Part 1. Part 2 is fine. Part 3 doesn't exist. Maybe they make one day. Who knows? I've been wanting to watch The Irishman, but it's a 3.5-hour long video. But, like, I'm not the biggest film person, personally. I'm watching more media now than I ever have been, which is cool, but, you know. Favorite drawing artist? Probably Charles Lister Art, friend of the show. If we look at his Instagram, his shit is like it always felt like the logical extension of what my art style would look like. And I'll talk more about my art style, I guess, in the next video when we get to that, because I think it does come up. But I'm a big fan of this style. I really enjoy it. And it shares a lot of similarities to what I'm doing back when I was drawing more. And I like it a lot. And also, he's a cool guy. Let me try to find my favorite one. It's one of his older ones. I have one of his books on here. I have one of his books. You see? Retsil Selrak. Charles Lister. Let me see if I can find it in here. I know it's in here. Since I have this. Oh, there it is. This is my favorite. It's mirrored, by the way. This is probably my favorite of his that he's ever done. Big fan of this one. I think it's very cool. But outside of that, cool book. And I'll find it on here too. I have another one that I like a lot, but it's not necessarily my favorite. I like this one a lot. I think it's really cool. I like the cacti for scale. This is a big motherfucker. It got the onion hat, which I think is neat. But you can see, like, the noses thing. Like I said, I'll show more of my artwork in the next video, I guess. And here's the better quality version of the one I just showed from the book. I think it's really cool. I think the use of negative space is neat. I think the use of the air horns here to give a sense of it being loud and also give a sense of, like, three-dimensional shit. Dudes coming in like Rolf, Life Has Many Doors, Ed Boy. I think it's very cool. You should go follow Charles Lister. Other than that, when it comes to art, Dave Correa and Alex Pardee, I was very majorly inspired by way back when I was first developing my own kind of art style. I have some of their prints, which I should probably put on my wall at some point. Pretty barren back there. So yeah, that's that. All right, and where we'll leave it for now is Abigail asks, what is your favorite thing and what is your least favorite thing on Discord? This is a difficult question. Very broad. I would say my favorite thing is probably seeing people prosper, seeing people be very skilled and demonstrate the skill that they have in whatever field and excelling at it, being recognized for it. So like a major one for me is seeing like artists, people who draw, people who do music, seeing the reception that they get from their fans and the people that enjoy their stuff, like the adoration, the praise and all that kind of shit that they get. I would imagine that the feeling that they're having, like putting out that material and having people enjoy it is really good. And like, I just think that's neat. I think it's cool, especially if they're doing some stuff that is a bit more off the beaten path, kind of doing their own thing. So that's the biggest thing. I like when people are like demonstrating a skill that they have. I think that's neat. It could also be like other stuff like sports, competitive video games, content creation, all this kind of shit. Generally speaking, when a person has been training a skill and has an opportunity to demonstrate it and people are very receptive positively to it, makes me feel good. Least favorite thing, that's a harder question to answer. Probably human suffering. I know that's a shocking idea. You know, you wouldn't expect that kind of an answer from somebody. Generally speaking, ideally, hopefully, most people aren't the biggest fans of human suffering. But I would say probably that. I would like to think that a lot of the policies I support and my ideology as a whole would lead to less people, you know, human suffering reported. So probably that, but if we're not going to go for like some shit like that, I don't actually know. Give me some time. Since we're doing a part 3 to this, I'll try to think of something else in the next one, because apparently we got a next one. We still got all these videos, or these questions to go for, by the way. Still got all these questions, which is crazy. So I guess I'll see you then. I hope you've enjoyed this brief foray into the delusions of my mind. So same format as the last time. This video will come out. Then 4 days after that, another video will come out that won't be the Q&A. And then 4 days after that, the third and hopefully final installment of this 3-part epic, the 35K Q&A, will come out. So I guess it's warranted, all right? I took forever to get to the 35K Q&A because it was the 25K Q&A originally. And we're getting a 3-part, hour-long video, 3-hour-long thing. Hopefully the next video isn't as long, though. So I think it was worth the wait, frankly. Anyway. This video's CONURE, CALLOUT is John David. Congratulations. It's been a long time coming, but it's finally came. Appreciate the support, and thanks for being a consistent chatter in my live stream video feed. If you'd like to be the next CONURE, CALLOUT, all you gotta do is follow me on Twitter, @CONURECC. Retweet my video links when they go live, same as it always is. Remember to subscribe to the channel, you absolute fucking beautiful person. All notifications on when you hit the bell. Leave a like if you'd like, and comment something super cool about how you're excited for the third installment of the 35K Q&A, because I thought it would be done in one segment, but now this is the second one, and also now there's going to be a third one. It's absurd. Goodbye.